Let's recreate this shot in 3D. This is the first clicker scene from The Last of Us Episode 2. The shot was okay, but as soon as I saw this shot, I knew I wanted to recreate it for a video. I started by taking this mouth model and adding that split in the upper part. Then I went ahead and quickly created some of the mushrooms using splines and the volume builder. I'm much more comfortable in cinema, so I chose to do it this way. This whole scene was very challenging for me because I really barely sculpt, so I'm still just learning how to sculpt. I probably worked with ZBrush maybe 5 times, and I very much enjoy it. So I was like, you know what? Fuck it, let me take this huge bite and hopefully I'll be able to chew it. My main difficulty, I think, is really assessing the different levels of details. As in, start with the blocking, then knowing when to move to the next level of detail. It just comes with experience, I guess. Since I started working in 3D, I would watch sculpting tutorials in awe, feeling like I'm so far away from that skill. So whenever I get the opportunity to sculpt, it's just a whole lot of creative fun for me. That's kind of the thing about 3D, right? There's so many different aspects of working in 3D, and each one of them barely has anything to do with the other. I love the Flipped Normals channel, and as soon as I started watching some videos to refresh my memory with ZBrush, I saw that they also, obviously, sculpted a clicker model. Obviously, their sculpture is so way beyond what I can even expect to achieve. But hey, you gotta try. Now that I'm done, there's a lot of things I would do different, but I guess that applies to any project you ever make. can tell I didn't put too much effort into the shirt and the hand in the back, since I knew they weren't going to be in focus. Most of the details and the detail work went on the face and the mushrooms in the center of the shot. Once I was kind of done, I imported the sculpture to Substance Painter, and this is actually the first time I ever used it. I've been wanting to use it for a couple of years since materials are a huge part of my 3D workflow, but never got around to do it. So I watched a few tutorials, downloaded it, and said, you know what, let me actually learn how to use it on camera. Probably a stupid idea, but I think everything here is pretty straightforward in terms of painting and layering different colors. How bad can it come out, right? Well, let's just say I think my next project in Substance will be 10 times better. I must say though, this potential for extreme level of detail control that Substance Painter allows comes at the expense of, well, time. I'm not used to literally creating materials from scratch by hand. I usually do it either procedurally or I start with an existing material and adjust it to my needs. And recreating realistic details from scratch is just tons and tons of smart layering. Really fun though, but takes a long time. I strongly suggest you get into Substance if you love texturing. Also, Cinema's body paint and even ZBrush poly painting is absolutely nothing compared to what Substance provides. It's night and day. Once I was in Substance, I would go back to ZBrush and add more detail to the sculpture, and that would happen often from now on. Every time I would proceed to the next step, I would go back to previous steps to add or remove stuff. Once I was kinda done in Substance, I set up the scene in Cinema. I roughly converted all the textures, then quickly set up the background and tried to match the lighting of the original shot. Then started cranking all the texture details. Luckily, the background was all dark and out of focus, so the main thing I tried to nail right were the textures, the lighting, and the framing as it was in the original shot. And that's what I like about the projects I do in this series. It's really an exercise of controlling a lot of aspects in creating an image, from sculpting or modeling, to texturing, to lighting, to framing and composition, to color grading. If you fuck up one of these elements, the rest of them will suffer. Then I went to After Effects to color grade it, but I definitely ended up going back and forth to the ZBrush, to Substance Painter and Cinema, and dialed further into details. I don't know if it's just me, but only when I see the final render, I realize so many mistakes I missed along the way. Like, for example, I noticed how different the overall shape of the fungus crown is from the original shot. And even though I wasn't going for an exact replica, I still wanted the silhouette to feel similar, so I was doing a lot of scaling and rotating and duplicating mushrooms in Cinema to get the right overall crown shape, along with changing details of the textures and lighting. I thought the light was coming from the right side of the camera, but it took me a while to realize it's actually coming from the left side of the camera, so once I changed that, it really felt much more similar. I used the Cinema hair object to add fuzz detail on the shirt, and also added some hair on the back of the creature's head. You can barely notice the hair in the original shot, but you can definitely see it in the behind the scenes photos. And that's the final render. It's not my best work, but I think it hits pretty close to the original shot, and I definitely learned a lot making this. If I were to remake this, I would invest a little more time in the background, add more fine detail to the model, and maybe add a little motion blur. Here are some close-up shots of the model. Man, I just want to go back and do it again since I know I can make it so much better, but nah, I'll just keep working on the next videos. Feel free to support on Patreon and membership, and all my love to my smoking Patreons and members you see on screen right now. I love you. Have a great day. Peace.